Hello. I wanted to start today's video off sharing something that I wrote a couple months ago. And the reason why I wanted to start the video out by sharing this is because by writing this was my passion behind posting these videos. And I felt it was just very important for whoever watches my videos to know where I come from, where my empathy lies. I wrote, I want to share everything I've learned within myself and this kind of abuse and the recovery journey that comes along with it. I'm not fully healed, but every version I am is exactly who I need to be in that moment. Each step being so critical to take the other in the right direction. I want to explain every tactic I've tried, good and bad, and most important, what worked and works with me. I want to be what I needed for others who need help towards healing. And I mean, that couldn't be true enough. And I feel like I reached a sense of higher understanding from what I previously reached. And when that happened, it caused me to look back at the things that I had done up to that point, what I had done. I really took great value in the very specifics of my journey. And that's, when I was recovering, or I'm not recovering, of course, I'm still recovering, but when I started researching narcissism, narcissistic abuse, what exactly it meant, I found YouTube channels, support groups on social media, and I was pretty blown away at how I shared very specific, or what I thought was very specific type of traumas or abuse. And I had shared that with a lot of people, and it was an eye-opener. So I kind of just wanted to share how I came to know of narcissism and the steps that I kind of took from there. It wasn't until I had opened up to someone about some of the stuff that I was dealing with at home, and it was kind of work related, and I felt like that was the only reason why I had to say certain things. But this person was very impartial to me and didn't know anything about the person I was with and the family I had and whatnot. And this person said to me, if I were you, I would do some research on narcissism. It sounds like your partner is a textbook narcissist. And up to that point, I had known of the word, right? And I'm pretty sure we've all kind of heard of the word narcissist. And I just thought it was someone who was just very full of themselves and, blah, blah, blah. But there's a heck of a lot more to it than just that. And even now, when I talk about narcissism or narcissistic abuse with anybody, I'll say to them, you've heard of narcissism, right? And they'll say, yeah. And I said, besides just knowing of the word, do you really understand what it means? And 9 times out of 10, I get someone that goes, oh, no. The ones who do are, that right there tells me, we share some type of similar bond in regards to something that we've suffered, because it's a very specific. And I think it's just something that's not discussed, or it's just used very loosely. Always such a narcissist. And people I don't think really understand what exactly narcissism means. So what I did was I educated myself on narcissism and narcissistic tactics that they use. And I think one of the most important things for me was viewing myself as pretty much like a player in a video game, like an avatar, and just understanding that I somehow became a pawn in this twisted game that this person does. I started also documenting how frequent I had arguments. And I didn't just put it as arguments. There's different levels of arguments. And I'm sure you know that if you're with a narcissist or have had experience with a narcissism. There's different levels of arguments. And these arguments could be of different calibers. So I started documenting in my calendar and my phone how often these things happened. And I started realizing that there was a pretty healthy pattern going on of just so many toxic instances, toxic situations. And it does something when you see it as a pattern in some type of writing or form. So that definitely was a big eye opener for me. It was kind of like a little nudge to kind of get me to the next part where I'm just kind of like, all right, yeah, I guess this is just crazy textbook narcissism. Another thing that I did was I started recording myself to myself after I would have to do this like gray rock technique or method during an incident or an outburst where you kind of have to sit there and be emotionless as things are being said to you and things are being thrown in your face, and there's many different ways that they do these type of things. But I had to learn how to be very emotionless and not show any type of reaction, whether I was upset, no matter how upset I was, no matter how hurtful the things were. I just remained very emotionless. And after I got a chance to kind of break away from that very specific moment, I would run and I would, either voice record or I would video record myself, and I would release my feelings to myself in a sense of kind of like, hey, you know how you feel right now, like you better stop this. So it was almost like talking to myself in my future, because I knew that I was getting manipulated and I didn't know how to break out of it, because it's one thing to know it and it's another thing to know how to get out of it, and they're not the same. And if you're suffering from narcissistic abuse, you absolutely understand what I'm referring to. So I was well aware that I was getting manipulated. So I was trying many different tactics to reference back to for myself to kind of get myself back into that very specific mind frame that I knew I had to be in at that very moment. Another thing that I thought was such a huge step for me in my recovery, and I recommend it to everybody, is I started an Instagram page that was anonymous. And on that Instagram page, I was able to post very specific things that I felt I couldn't share with anybody who knew about my life, or knew me, or knew the partner that I was with, and just find relatability. And I would make posts and I would pour my heart out. And in my hashtags, I would put, narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, narcissistic recovery warrior, words like that people are going to look up to find that relatability. And I was amazed that in such a short time, I had so many people that started following my page and commenting. And I mean, I remember feeling so empowered, like, wow, oh my gosh, people get it. And at the time, it was so important for me to find people that related to me. And I feel like that's something that you go through, because there's like stages of this. And the relatability is very, very big, because you can't even let your walls down to go within yourself and really dive and see where these traumas lie and where you've been manipulated, what you have to change, because some things just become second nature. You don't understand why you react the way you do, and then afterwards you feel guilty because you're like, whoa, that's not me. I don't normally do that. And that is the cycle that's been brainwashed into you. So I found it was just so helpful to start my Instagram page. And it was important for me, I'm reading my little notes here. It was important for me to find people that I could relate to be honest with, for once, without any fear or judgment. Because how truthful can we be if we have that fear that someone is going to judge us on that? You can't. You might scratch the surface, but I always say, at least for myself, that if you can't pull that root out from the ground, you're just kind of digging in dirt for now. So Okay, another thing, and I'm sorry I say the word all the time, I know that. But I wanted to talk about loneliness. Loneliness. Everybody experiences loneliness, right? We all know what loneliness is. We all have our definition for it. But with narcissistic abuse, loneliness, it is its own beast. And I'm just going to, I guess, touch on this from where I can relate from my own standpoint. But I personally left so much behind to start a new life. And I became very isolated, and I knew that I was very fragile in my healing, and I didn't want to fall victim to anything that I hadn't unlearned. So I was very aware that I had to unlearn certain reactions, behaviors. So I was very aware of that, and I considered myself like very fragile to that. And for that reason, I isolated myself from friends and family, and I didn't want anybody to influence why I was going to do whatever I was going to do or be whoever I was going to be. But with that, finding that inner strength and going within yourself also comes a very big sense of loneliness. And I did some reading, and I read something that was just such a big light bulb moment for me. And I'm going to read it for you. I was going to try to do it off of my memory, and I was like, you know what? I don't think so. Okay. So it's one sentence, and it's a powerful one. It says, I am uncomfortable being alone. Say it one more time. I am uncomfortable being alone. And just leave it there. Leave it in that sentence. And when you're able to kind of separate those two words, uncomfortable and alone, I thought that for me, it was huge. Because that's when I was able to say to myself, like, I'm really not alone. I'm just uncomfortable because I wanted to be alone. I wanted to have the separation, but it's uncomfortable. And I said to myself, and I'm okay with that. Where I am in my life right now, like I had said in the beginning when I was reading my little inspiration in the beginning, is, I'm perfect with who I am at this given moment. And that's where this loneliness for me took a turn, and I no longer felt lonely, right? So it's like we don't want to attach to anything that holds a low vibration or a victim mentality. Another thing that I also recommend is I also started writing down words that I felt were associated with loneliness, anger, and you'd be surprised with how many words you can write down. And despair. I mean, I could go on, and for days I would have a word pop in my head and be like, oh, gotta add that to my list. And the reason why I did that is because at the root of all those words, you're gonna see that they're all just negative. And you could just put fear right at the top and just all your words underneath that. And that's really what it is. All those words are fear-based. And when you're coming out of a codependent relationship, narcissistic relationship, any abusive type of relationship, there is that sense of codependency that you have to learn how to unbreak. And you might not even realize where you're codependent. So that's another thing. Look up certain terminologies like codependency, trauma bonding, touch deprivation was something that I also remember reading up a lot on, and I thought it was very interesting. I said, oh, wow, it's crazy how, victims of sexual abuse or anything along those lines, even mental abuse, emotional abuse, can suffer from touch deprivation. And just educating yourself and being aware and kind of being able to say, like, all right, this is something that's happening, or this is something that's happened as a result of me being in this situation, it lets you not attach yourself to that. So there is that level of kind of stepping back and saying like, okay, that happened to me, but it doesn't define me. Which also brings me to a very wonderful phrase that, if I could find it, because I totally went off of like topic, and I had like the system I was going to follow, but I didn't. So I apologize that I'm like flipping through my papers, but I wanted to share this with you as well. It says, I am taking action towards my growth. I am taking action to support my growth. Everything will be okay. I'm the one I've been waiting for. I'm who I needed to be in this very moment. I am growing. And I personally remind myself that I feel like anybody who's gotten out from a narcissistic abusive relationship may feel as though they should be a lot further than where they are at that given moment. But then there comes that moment of clarity where you kind of have to say to yourself, I'm just thankful to be wise. I'm thankful to be my own advocate. I'm thankful that I found my inner love. I'm grateful that I found my inner strength. So that's kind of all I have for today for this video. I see that I'm about to go on 17 minutes, and I really don't like keeping these videos for too long. But I will ask that if you found this to be helpful in any way, please hit the like buttons. Please subscribe to my channel so you can be updated every time I post a video. I do plan on posting more videos regarding other topics. I know I mentioned touch deprivation, but I would love to make a video about that because I did a lot of research on it, what it means for survivors of abuse and how it affects us. And I thought it was very important, and I found it relatable to myself. So it's something that I definitely want to share. So please subscribe to my channel and make sure that you hit the bell and subscribe to all so you get notified every time I post a video. And I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sending all my love and strength to you all. Bye.